The orbital scrapyard floated above the trading moon of like a metal graveyard. Thousands of broken ships, damaged stations, and forgotten machines drifted in a loose formation held together by gravity nets. From a distance, it looked like a cloud of trash. Up close, it was even worse. Park wiped the grease from her hands and looked at the pile of engine parts in front of her. She had been working on this repair for 6 hours. Her back hurt. Her eyes burned. But she could not stop. Every repair meant credits toward her debt, and she still owed 3 more years of work. 3 years. The thought made her stomach tight. 3 years ago, she had been a free mechanic traveling between human colonies. Then the raiders came. They destroyed her transport ship and left her floating in an escape pod, found her and saved her life. But nothing in the galaxy was free. He paid for her rescue, her food, her small room in the station. Now she worked to pay him back. Finished the engine repair and marked it complete on her tablet. She stretched her arms above her head and heard her joints crack. She was only 34 years old, but some days she felt much older. The scrapyard was quiet today. Most of the other workers were tall beings with gray skin and 4 arms. They were strong and fast, built for heavy labor. They looked at like she was a strange pet that kept around for entertainment. Humans were rare in this sector of space. Most of them stayed close to Earth and the inner colonies. Only the lost ones ended up this far out. Walked through the maze of broken ships looking for her next assignment. Usually sent her the small jobs, delicate repairs, wiring work, things that required small human hands. The thought this was funny. They did not understand that small hands could do things that big hands could not. She climbed over a pile of whole plates and stopped. Something caught her eye. Between 2 massive cargo containers half buried under sheets of scrap metal, she saw the nose of a ship. It was different from the others. The design was old, very old. The metal was a dark bronze color covered in dust and small dents, but the shape was still beautiful. Smooth curves, sharp angles. It looked like something from a museum. Moved closer. She pulled away pieces of scrap to get a better view. The ship was small, maybe 40 meters long. It had 2 wings swept back like a bird in flight. The cockpit was a single bubble of glass at the front. No visible weapons. No sensor arrays. Just a simple, elegant design. She found a marking on the side. The letters were in an alien language she did not recognize, but her translator implant worked on them slowly. After a moment, the words appeared in her mind. Class Scout Ship. Manufacturing date, 412 years ago. 412 years. Let out a low whistle. This ship was ancient. It was built before they even had space travel. It was built before humans left their solar system. She walked around the vessel, studying every detail. The hull had no cracks. The wings were still attached. The engine ports were dark but intact. Someone had taken care of this ship for a very long time before it ended up here. Found a hatch on the side and tried to open it. The mechanism was stuck. She grabbed a tool from her belt and worked on the lock. After several minutes, the hatch groaned and swung open. Inside, the air was stale but not toxic. Emergency lights flickered on as she stepped through the doorway. The interior was cramped but functional. 2 seats in the cockpit, storage compartments along the walls, a small engine room in the back. Everything was covered in dust, but everything was still there. She sat in the pilot seat and touched the controls. They were mechanical, physical switches and levers. No holographic displays, no touch screens, no computer interface at all. The ship was designed to be flown by hand, by feel, by skill. Felt something warm in her chest. It was the first time she had felt excited in years. She found in his office, a cramped room filled with screens showing inventory lists. The owner was eating his lunch when she walked in. He looked at her with his 3 eyes and made a sound of annoyance. "What do you want, human? I am busy." "I found a ship," said. "A class scout I wanted." Laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "That piece of garbage, I forgot it was even there. The technology is older than my grandmother. It has no weapons, no shields, no modern systems. It is worthless." "Then you will not miss it," said. "Give it to me as partial payment for my work." The stopped laughing. He studied her with those three eyes, trying to understand what she was thinking. "You want to trade credits for a ship that cannot even fly?" "Yes." "Why?" Smiled. "Because I am a mechanic. I like fixing things." Shook his head. He thought all humans were a little bit crazy, and this one was proving his theory correct. But the ship truly was worthless. He had tried to sell it many times without success. Nobody wanted technology that old. "Fine," he said. "Take it. But I am only reducing your debt by 200 credits. That ship is not worth more than scrap metal." "Deal," said. She left the office before he could change his mind. That night sat in her small room and read everything she could find about class ships. The information was limited. The species that built them had disappeared centuries ago. Nobody knew what happened to them. But their ships were famous for one thing: simplicity. They did not trust computers. They believed that machines should be controlled by hands, not by programs. Their ships had no artificial intelligence, no automated systems. Everything was manual. At first thought this was a weakness. Modern ships could do everything automatically. They could fly themselves, fight themselves, repair themselves. A pilot was almost unnecessary. But then she thought about the raiders who destroyed her transport ship. They had used electronic warfare. They sent signals that confused the ship's computers and shut down all systems. The crew could not fight back because the computers would not let them. They were helpless. Looked at the images of the class scout on her screen. No computers meant nothing to hack. No automated systems meant nothing to shut down. The ship was immune to electronic warfare because it had no electronics to attack. She began to see the old ship differently. It was not obsolete. It was something else entirely. It was a weapon that nobody expected, a weapon that nobody could stop. Started making plans. She would need parts. She would need time. She would need help. But she had 3 years of debt to work off, and she was going to spend those years building something special. The aliens thought she was foolish. They thought she was wasting her time on a piece of junk. They did not understand that humans had a gift for finding value in things that others threw away. Park smiled in the darkness of her room. For the first time since the raiders took everything from her, she had a purpose. She was going to build a weapon that would make the galaxy remember why humans were dangerous. 6 months passed in the scrapyard above. The days blended together in a rhythm of work and sweat. Spent her mornings doing repairs for, earning credits toward her debt. She spent her evenings working on the class scout. The other workers noticed. They watched her climb into the old ship every night, carrying tools and salvaged parts. They whispered among themselves in their clicking language. They thought she had lost her mind. One of them, a large male named, gave the ship a nickname. He called it the Coffin because he believed anyone who flew it would die. The name spread quickly. Soon everyone in the scrapyard was using it, even found it amusing. Did not care, she let them laugh. She knew what she was building. The first challenge was the engine. The original power system was dead, its fuel cells empty and cracked from age. Stripped it out completely and replaced it with a hybrid system she designed herself. She used parts from 3 different ships, mixing alien technology with human engineering principles she had learned back on Earth. The result was ugly but effective. The new engine was smaller than the original but produced twice the power. It ran on standard fuel that she could buy anywhere in the galaxy. Most importantly, it had a backup, a chemical propulsion system that used liquid fuel and fire. Ancient technology, reliable technology, technology that would work even if everything else failed. The second challenge was weapons. The class scout was never designed for combat. It had no weapon mounts, no targeting systems, no ammunition storage. Had to create everything from scratch. She found 2 old kinetic cannons in the scrap piles. They were simple machines that fired metal slugs at high speed. No energy beams, no guided missiles, just solid metal moving very fast. The kind of weapons that humans used before they discovered plasma technology. The cannons were heavy and required manual aiming. Mounted them on the wings and connected them to mechanical triggers in the cockpit. She would have to aim by looking through the glass bubble and lining up her targets with her own eyes. It was primitive. It was also impossible to hack. She added explosive charges to the nose of the ship. They were meant for mining asteroids, not combat, but an explosion was an explosion. If she rammed something, the charges would make sure it stayed down. The third challenge was armor. Modern ships used energy shields that could absorb weapon fire. The class had no shields and never would. Could not create a shield generator from scrap metal. So she did something different. She covered the ship in layers of solid armor plating. She used the thickest metal she could find, welding plates over plates until the hull was almost 10 centimeters thick in some places. The ship gained weight, but it also gained protection that no energy weapon could easily penetrate. When she finished, the class Scout looked nothing like its original design. It was covered in patches and plates, bristling with weapons by welding marks. It looked like a monster that had crawled out of a junkyard nightmare. Loved it. One evening, she heard footsteps behind her while she was working on the cockpit controls. She turned and saw a female standing at the open hatch. The alien was young, with lighter gray skin than most of her species. She held against her chest and looked nervous. "I am," the said. "I work in the technical section. I have been watching you." Wiped her hands on a rag. "Watching me do what?" "Build this," gestured at the ship. "Everyone thinks you are wasting your time, but I looked at the specifications of your modifications. You are not building a transport. You are building a warship." Studied the young alien for a long moment. "Are you going to tell?" Shook her head. "No, I am curious. Why would you build a warship with no computers? Modern combat requires automated targeting, threat assessment, electronic countermeasures. Your ship has none of these things." "That is the point," said. She sat on the edge of the hatch and invited to join her. They hesitated, then climbed up and sat beside her. "I do not understand," admitted. Pointed at the sleek ships parked in the distance, waiting for repairs. "Those ships are smarter than their pilots. They can do everything automatically. Fight, navigate, communicate. The pilots just sit there and watch." "That is efficient," said. "It is also a weakness." Leaned closer. "What happens when someone attacks the computers? What happens when a virus shuts down the navigation? What happens when electronic warfare scrambles the targeting system?" Thought about this. The ship becomes helpless. "Exactly. Raiders know this. Pirates know this. They attack the computers first. Once the computers are dead, the pilots do not know how to fight. They surrender or they die." Knocked on the metal hull of her ship. "But you cannot hack a piece of metal. You cannot send a virus to a mechanical switch. My ship has no computers to attack. When other ships lose their systems, mine will keep flying." Looked at the class Scout with new eyes. She began to see what it created. It was not a relic. It was a predator designed to hunt in conditions where modern ships could not survive. "This is clever," said quietly. "This is very clever." After that night, visited often. She helped with technical problems and brought her supplies from the main station. They did not talk much about personal things, but a friendship grew slowly between them, built on shared work and mutual respect. The other visitor was less expected. Arrived at the scrapyard on a trading ship 3 months after started her project. He was a human male in his early 40s, with gray hair at his temples and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He bought and sold goods between the outer colonies, traveling alone in a small cargo vessel. Found working on her ship late one night. He stood outside the class Scout with his hands in his pockets, studying the modified hull with an expert eye. "That is quite a project," he said in Korean. nearly fell off her ladder. She had not heard her native language in years. She climbed down and faced the stranger, trying to decide if he was a threat. "Who are you?" she asked. "A trader, a traveler," shrugged. "Another human stuck far from home. I heard there was a woman here building something interesting. I wanted to see for myself." He walked around the ship slowly, touching the armor plates, examining the weapon mounts. He asked questions about the engine, the controls, the fuel system. His questions were specific and technical. This man knew ships. "You have done good work," he said finally, "but you are missing some things, human things." "Like what?" Smiled. "Like proper tools, like Earth-made parts that actually fit human hands, like coffee." He offered to help. He traveled between systems often and could bring supplies that were impossible to find in the scrapyard. In return, he only wanted one thing: to see what could do with proper resources. Agreed. She did not fully trust him, but she needed help. Building a warship from garbage was possible. Building a great warship required better materials. Over the following months brought her gifts from distant places: tools made for human fingers, electronic components from Earth, food that tasted like home. Each visit, he stayed for a few days, helping with the hardest work before disappearing again into the stars. Never asked why he helped her. She suspected he had his own reasons. Everyone in the outer reaches had secrets and scars. The ship took shape. The engine hummed with power. The weapons responded to her touch. The armor gleamed under the lights of the scrapyard. Gave her creation a name. She called it the Relic. It was old and forgotten, just like the technology inside it. But it was also something new, something dangerous. When the Relic was finally complete, sat in the pilot seat and ran her hands over the controls. Everything was manual. Everything required her skill, her judgment, her courage. The ship would not think for her. It would not save her from her own mistakes. But it would fly, and it would fight. And when the time came, it would make her enemies regret ever thinking that old things were worthless. Park smiled in the darkness of the cockpit. The coffin was ready. Now she just needed someone to bury. The warning came without sound. Red lights flashed across every screen in the scrapyard control room. Dropped his food and ran to the main console, his 4 arms moving across the controls with practiced speed. "What is happening?" asked, rushing in behind him. Did not answer immediately. His 3 eyes moved across the sensor data and his gray face turned pale. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. "The Syndicate, they are here." The name sent fear through everyone who heard it. The Syndicate was a fleet of raiders who controlled this entire sector of space. They did not ask for permission. They did not negotiate. They arrived, took what they wanted, and destroyed anyone who resisted. Was in the hangar when the alarm started. She ran to the control room and pushed through the crowd of worried workers. Through the viewing window, she could see the Syndicate fleet emerging from faster-than-light travel. 12 ships, sleek and black, bristling with weapons. They moved in perfect formation like predators surrounding their prey. "How many?" she asked. "Too many," said. "We have no weapons, no defenses. We must surrender and hope they do not kill us all." A communication signal came through the main speaker. The voice that followed was cold and amused. "This is Commander of the Syndicate Fleet. The trading moon of and all orbital stations are now under our control. You will provide tribute, fuel, supplies, and workers. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to prepare your offering." The signal ended. Silence filled the control room. Watched the Syndicate ships through the window. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls were covered in sensor arrays and weapon ports. Energy shields shimmered around them like soap bubbles. They represented the best technology that credits could buy. And they had taken everything from her 3 years ago. A different Syndicate group, a different sector, but the same tactics. Electronic warfare that shut down her transport ship. Helpless surrender. Everything she owned floating away in pieces. Her hands began to shake, not from fear, from anger. "I am going to fight them," she said. Every head in the room turned toward her, made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You fight them? With what? Your little project ship," he pointed at the syndicate fleet. "Those are military vessels with the most advanced systems in the sector. They have weapons that can destroy a station with one shot. What can you possibly do against them?" "I can try," said. She walked out of the control room before anyone could stop her. Her boots echoed in the empty corridors as she made her way to the hangar. Behind her, she heard footsteps, caught up with her, breathing hard. "Wait, this is suicide." Maybe, kept walking. "But I am not going to kneel before raiders again. I did that once. Never again." "Your ship is untested. You have never even flown it in combat." "Then this will be good practice." They reached the hangar. The relic sat in its bay, ugly and patched and magnificent, climbed up to the cockpit and began her startup sequence. The engine hummed to life. The mechanical systems clicked and groaned. Everything worked. Stood below, watching with wide eyes. "At least tell me your plan." Paused. She looked out at the young who had become her friend. "The syndicate uses electronic warfare. They send signals that confuse computer systems and shut down enemy ships before the fight even begins. Every modern vessel is vulnerable to this." "But the relic has no computers," said slowly. "Exactly. Their main weapon will not work on me. They will have to fight with conventional weapons, and they will not be expecting that. Nobody fights with conventional weapons anymore." A new signal came through the station speakers. This one was different. It was weak, broken, full of static, but the language was clear. "This is Han of the transport vessel Morning Star. I am being held prisoner aboard the Syndicate command ship. If anyone can hear this, please help. There are other captives, humans. They are going to sell us. Please, someone help us." The signal cut off. Froze a human voice, a human prisoner, aboard the Syndicate command ship. She had been planning to fight just to prove a point, to refuse surrender, to show that she would not be a victim again. But now there was something more, someone who needed rescue. "Did you hear that?" asked. "I heard it," finished her startup and sealed the cockpit. "Tell to delay as long as possible, keep the syndicate talking. I need time." "Time for what?" "To get those prisoners out." The relic lifted from the hangar floor. Its engine roared with power that shook the walls, guided the ship through the scrapyard, weaving between piles of debris and broken vessels. She headed toward open space. On her short-range communicator, she heard screaming at her to stop. She ignored him. On the Syndicate channel, she heard Commander asking what was happening. One of his officers reported that a small vessel had launched from the scrapyard. "Identify the vessel," Commander ordered. "Unknown configuration. Extremely old design. No electronic signature detected. Our sensors cannot get a clear reading." "No electronic signature. That is impossible. All ships have electronics." "This one appears to be operating on manual systems only, Commander. I have never seen anything like it." There was a pause, then laughed. "Some fool is trying to fight us in an antique. How entertaining. Activate electronic warfare. Shut them down and we will add their ship to our collection." Watched her screens. Nothing happened. No signal interference. No system failures. The relic continued flying smoothly toward the Syndicate fleet. On the enemy channel, she heard confusion. "Commander, the electronic warfare is not working. The target ship has no systems to disrupt." "What do you mean, no systems? Every ship has systems." "This one does not, sir. It appears to be entirely mechanical." Another pause, longer this time. When Commander spoke again, his voice had lost some of its amusement. "Interesting. Switch to pulse weapons. Overload their shields and then we will board them." Smiled grimly. She angled the relic toward the nearest Syndicate vessel and pushed the engine to full power. The ship leaped forward, faster than anything so ugly should be able to move. The syndicate ships fired. Blue energy pulses streaked through space toward the relic. They were designed to overload shield generators, causing cascading failures that left ships defenseless. The pulses hit the relic and splashed against solid metal. There were no shields to overload. The armor absorbed the energy and glowed red with heat, but it held. Commander, pulse weapons are ineffective. The target has no shields. They are using physical armor. Physical armor sounded genuinely surprised now. What era is this ship from? Unknown, sir. Our targeting computers are having difficulty locking on. The electronic signature is too small. Kept flying straight at the enemy. The distance closed rapidly. She could see the syndicate vessel growing larger in her view screen. Its weapons fired again and again, but the pulses could not stop her. She was 50 kilometers away, 40, 30. The syndicate ship began evasive maneuvers, trying to get out of her path, but had been flying ships since she was 16 years old. She had learned in Earth's atmosphere, where computers could not be trusted and pilots needed real skill. She adjusted her course and kept the enemy in her sights. 20 kilometers, 10. Commander, she is going to ram us. Impossible. No one would be that insane. But Park was exactly that insane. She had lost everything once. She had spent 3 years building a weapon, and now she was going to use it. The relic struck the syndicate vessel at full speed. The armored nose punched through the enemy's energy shields like a fist through paper. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid mass. Physics did not care about technology. Metal screamed against metal. The syndicate ship's hull cracked. The relic pushed deeper, its reinforced frame absorbing the impact. Felt the collision in her bones, but she stayed conscious. She had built this ship to survive exactly this moment. She pulled back on the controls. The relic tore free from the wounded syndicate vessel, leaving a gaping hole in its side. Atmosphere rushed out into space. Emergency lights flashed across the enemy's hull. 1 ship down, 11 to go. Turned toward the next target and smiled. The real fight was just beginning. The syndicate fleet scattered like startled birds. They had never seen anything like this. Their electronic warfare was useless. Their pulse weapons could not stop the armored monster tearing through their formation. For the first time in years, Commander faced an enemy he did not understand. All ships switched to kinetic weapons, ordered through the communication channel. Destroy that thing. Heard the order on her scanner. She smiled. Kinetic weapons were exactly what she wanted. Energy pulses could fire endlessly, but kinetic rounds had to be aimed carefully, and the syndicate targeting computers still could not lock onto the relic. She dove between 2 enemy ships, so close that she could see the markings on their hulls. Their turrets tried to track her, spinning wildly as their automated systems failed to get a clear target. A few rounds fired, missing by wide margins. Pulled a lever, and her own weapons came alive. The kinetic cannons on the relic's wings were simple machines. No targeting computers, no heat-seeking rounds, just metal slugs fired at incredible speed by her own hands. She aimed through the glass cockpit, lining up her target with marks she had painted on the interior surface. She fired. The cannon kicked hard, sending vibrations through the ship. Her rounds tore into the nearest syndicate vessel, punching holes through its hull where the shields had already been weakened by her ramming attack earlier. The enemy ship lost power, lights flickered and died. It began drifting, crippled but not destroyed. Moved on. She had no time to finish every ship. She needed to reach the command vessel where the prisoners were held. Back in the scrapyard control room, and the workers watched in silence. The sensors showed the relic moving through the syndicate fleet like a ghost, dodging fire, delivering devastating attacks, refusing to die. "How is she doing this?" one of them whispered. Stood at the main console, her eyes fixed on the battle. She is fighting without technology, just skill and courage. I read about this in Human History Files. They call it fighting dirty. Fighting dirty. It means using any method that works, even if others consider it unfair or primitive. Humans invented it thousands of years ago. They never forgot. On the viewing screen, the relic slammed into another syndicate ship, crippling its engines. 3 vessels were now disabled. The rest were pulling back, trying to regroup. His voice came through the communication channel. He was watching from his trading ship, far from the battle but close enough to see everything. "You are incredible, but you cannot destroy them all. What is your plan?" Answered while dodging another volley of kinetic fire. "I am not trying to destroy them. I am going for the command ship. The prisoners are there. That ship has the heaviest armor and the most weapons. You will not survive a direct assault." "I know," checked her instruments. The relic had taken damage. The hull was dented in several places. One of her cannons was jammed. She was running low on ammunition. "That is why I am going inside." "Inside, you are going to board a syndicate command ship, alone." "Someone has to." She pushed through the remaining syndicate vessels, taking hits that would have destroyed any other ship. The armor held, but barely. Warning lights flashed across her cockpit. The engine temperature was climbing dangerously high. The command ship loomed ahead. It was 3 times larger than the others, a massive warship covered in weapons and sensor arrays. Commander's personal vessel, the heart of the fleet. Aimed for a specific spot on the hull. She had studied syndicate ship designs during her years in the scrapyard. She knew where the docking bays were. She knew where the armor was weakest. She fired her remaining ammunition at a single point on the command ship's hull. The kinetic rounds punched through layer after layer of metal. A hole appeared, small but growing. Then she activated the explosive charges on the relic's nose. The ship accelerated to maximum speed, braced herself against the pilot's seat. This was going to hurt. The relic struck the command ship like a missile. The explosive charges detonated on impact, blowing a massive hole in the enemy's hull. The relic's armored frame pushed through the breach and into the ship's interior, tearing through corridors and bulkheads before finally stopping in what looked like a cargo bay. Hung in her harness, dizzy and bleeding from a cut on her forehead, everything hurt, but she was alive, and she was inside. She grabbed the weapon she had kept beside her seat, an old kinetic pistol that had brought from Earth. No energy cells to drain, no targeting systems to fail, just metal and gunpowder and human determination. The cargo bay was filled with smoke and debris. Emergency alarms screamed through the ship. Somewhere in the distance, she heard voices shouting in alien languages. Climbed out of the relic and dropped to the floor. Her legs almost gave out, but she forced herself to stand. She had to move. She had to find the prisoners before the syndicate crew found her. She followed the corridor markings, heading toward the detention area. The ship was in chaos. Crew members ran past her without stopping, too focused on the damage to notice one more figure in the smoke. She found the detention block after 10 minutes of searching. The door was locked with an electronic seal, smiled grimly. Electronic seals had weaknesses. She pulled out a small device she had built herself and pressed it against the lock. It sent a focused electromagnetic pulse that fried the circuits. The door slid open. Inside, she found cells filled with prisoners, other alien species, and at the far end, 3 humans sitting together in a single cell. One of them stood up when she entered, a woman in her late 20s with short dark hair and bruises on her face. Her eyes went wide when she saw. "You are human," the woman said. "So are you." Used her device to open the cell. "You must be Han, I heard your distress signal. You came for us," looked like she could not believe it, "alone." "I had a ship, that was enough." Helped the other 2 humans stand. They were weak from captivity but alive. "Can you walk?" "We can try." Led them through the detention block, freeing other prisoners as she went. Soon, she had a group of 20 following her through the corridors. Most were too weak to fight, but some were angry enough to try. They found weapons in a security station, kinetic rifles and energy pistols that the guards had abandoned when the ship started falling apart. Armed everyone who could hold a gun. "Where is Commander?" she asked. "Command deck, 2 levels up," checked her weapon with practiced hands. "You are not seriously thinking of going after him?" "He ordered the attack on my transport ship 3 years ago. Different crew, same syndicate, same commander." Started moving toward the stairs. "I have been waiting a long time for this." "Then I am coming with you." They climbed through the damaged ship, fighting past scattered groups of syndicate crew. The enemy was confused and demoralized. Their advanced weapons failed to lock onto targets in the smoke-filled corridors, and her group used old-fashioned tactics: cover, movement, and accurate fire. The command deck doors were sealed. Used her last electromagnetic pulse to open them. Commander stood in the center of the room, surrounded by his remaining officers. He was tall and thin, with blue skin and eyes that burned with cold fury. He held an energy pistol pointed directly at. "So you are the human who destroyed my fleet with an antique," he said. "I am impressed, and very, very angry." Good raised her own weapon. "You should be. You cannot win. My remaining ships will destroy your friends in the scrapyard. You will watch everyone you know die." Shook her head. "Look at your screens, Commander." Glanced at the displays. His face changed. The battle outside had shifted. His scattered fleet was now surrounded by dozens of small ships from the trading moon below. The merchants and civilians had seen the relic's impossible fight, and they had found their courage. They were attacking the syndicate with whatever weapons they had. "It seems I inspired some people," said. "Your fleet is finished. Surrender now and you might survive." Commander screamed in rage and fired. Dove to the side. The energy bolt missed her by centimeters. She returned fire, her kinetic round striking in the shoulder. He stumbled backward, dropping his weapon. The other syndicate officers raised their hands in surrender. They knew when a battle was lost. Walked toward Commander, who was clutching his wounded shoulder and staring at her with hatred. "How," he demanded, "how did you do this?" Knelt beside him and spoke quietly so only he could hear. "Your technology was designed to fight other technology, but humans learned to fight with rocks and sticks long before we learned to build computers. We never forgot those lessons." She stood up and looked at Han and the other freed prisoners. "We never will." Commander had no response. He simply stared at her as his world collapsed around him. The battle was over. The syndicate was defeated. And a human mechanic with an obsolete ship had changed everything. 3 weeks after the battle, the orbital scrapyard above was busier than it had ever been. Ships arrived daily from distant systems, bringing traders, journalists, and curious visitors who wanted to see the place where a single human had destroyed a syndicate fleet. Park stood in the main hangar watching workers repair the relic. The ship had survived the battle, but barely. Its nose was crushed from the ramming attacks. Its armor was torn in a dozen places. One engine was completely dead, but the frame was intact. The heart of the ship still beat. "She will fly again," said, standing beside. The young had become her official engineer, promoted by after the battle. "It will take months, but we can rebuild her." Good touched the damaged hull with gentle fingers. She earned her rest. Footsteps approached from behind. Walked toward them with his 4 arms clasped behind his back. His 3 eyes studied with an expression she had never seen from him before: respect. "The Council has made a decision," he announced. "Your debt is canceled, completely. They have also voted to give you ownership of this hangar and everything in it." Turned to face him. "That is generous." "It is the least we can do. You saved us." Hesitated, then added something that clearly pained him to say. "I was wrong about you. I thought humans were weak. I thought you were a burden that I tolerated for entertainment. I was a fool. You saved my life when you pulled me from that escape pod, said. That makes us even. It does not, but I will spend the rest of my life trying to balance the scales. The owner bowed his head slightly. I would like to offer you a partnership, equal shares in the scrapyard. We could build something great together. Considered the offer. It was more than she had ever expected. A home, security, purpose, everything she had lost when the raiders destroyed her transport ship. But she had changed. The battle had awakened something in her that she could not ignore, a need to keep moving, a need to find others who were lost and alone the way she had been. I am honored, she said carefully, but I cannot stay. Nodded slowly, he did not seem surprised. I expected you might say that. Where will you go? Wherever I am needed, looked back at the relic. There are other syndicate groups out there, other raiders, other prisoners waiting for someone to rescue them. I cannot save them all, but I can try. You will need a crew. A new voice joined the conversation. Han walked across the hangar, her wounds healed and her strength returned. She wore a flight suit that had brought from one of the human colonies. She moved like someone who knew how to fight. I want to come with you, said. You saved my life, the others too. We owe you everything. You owe me nothing. Then consider it a choice. I was a pilot before the syndicate captured me, a good one. I can help you fly. I can help you fight. Eyes were steady and determined. I have nothing left to go home to. The syndicate saw to that, but I can make sure others do not suffer the way I did. Studied the young woman. She saw strength there, pain too, but also hope, the combination that made humans dangerous. The relic does not have advanced systems, warned. No autopilot, no targeting computers, everything is manual. Can you handle that? Smiled. I learned to fly on manual controls. My instructor always said that real pilots do not need computers. I thought he was old-fashioned. Now I understand what he meant. Nodded, then welcome aboard. Appeared at the hangar entrance. He carried a box of supplies that he set down near the relic. I brought gifts, he said, food from Earth, coffee, some weapons I found on a station that was selling old military stock. He glanced at the ship. Also, I managed to find replacement parts for your starboard engine. They are not new, but they will work. You have been very helpful, said. Why? Was quiet for a moment. His usual smile faded. I had a family once, a wife and daughter. They were traveling to visit relatives when a raider group attacked their ship. No survivors. He looked at with eyes that held old grief. I could not save them. I will never forgive myself for that, but I can help you save others. That is something. Understood, they all had their reasons. Pain, loss, anger, guilt. These were the things that drove humans forward when others would give up. You can join us too, she said, if you want. Shook his head. I am too old for combat, but I can keep supplying you. Whatever you need, wherever you are, I have contacts across the sector. He smiled slightly. Consider me your support network. The repairs took 3 months. During that time, stories about the battle have spread across the galaxy, became famous. Some called her a hero, others called her crazy. A few tried to hire her as a mercenary, offering fortunes that she refused. The syndicate put a bounty on her head. She considered it a compliment. When the relic was finally ready, stood in the cockpit with beside her. The ship looked different now. New armor plates covered the old damage. The weapons had been upgraded with better ammunition. The engine purred with fresh power. But the heart was the same. Manual controls, mechanical systems, no computers to hack, no electronics to fail, just metal and skill and human stubbornness. Where do we go first? Asked. Checked her instruments. Had sent her information about a syndicate slave convoy operating 3 systems away. 20 prisoners on their way to be sold on the black market. East, she said, toward the convoy. Activated the communication channel. Scrapyard control, This is the relic requesting departure clearance. His voice came back. Clearance granted, relic, safe travels, try not to destroy too many raiders. No promises, replied. The relic lifted from the hangar floor. It rose through the scrapyard, passing mountains of broken ships and forgotten technology. Workers stopped to watch it go. Some of them waved. Guided the ship into open space. The stars spread out before them, endless and cold and beautiful. Somewhere out there, people needed help, people who had lost everything, people who thought no one would come for them. They were wrong. Ready asked. Gripped her controls, ready. Pushed the throttle forward. The relic jumped into faster-than-light travel, vanishing from the system in a flash of light. Back in the scrapyard, watched the ship disappear. He stood silently for a long time after it was gone. "What are you thinking?" asked. The old shook his head slowly. "I am thinking about something said once. She told me that humans have a gift for finding value in things that others throw away." He gestured at the piles of scrap around them. Broken ships, abandoned technology, lost people. Humans look at these things and see potential. They see what could be, not what is. Is that why she kept the relic? Because others threw it away? Partly, but I think it was more than that. Turned away from the viewing window. She saw herself in that ship, old, damaged, forgotten, and she refused to accept that such things have no value. He paused at the doorway. That is why humans are dangerous. They never accept limits. They never believe something is impossible just because others say it is. Watch the empty space where the relic had been. Do you think she will succeed? Can one ship really make a difference against all the raiders in the galaxy? Laughed softly. One ship with a human flying it, I would not bet against her. He walked away into the station. I would never bet against her. In the darkness between stars, the relic flew toward its next battle. Its pilot sat at manual controls, steering by skill and instinct. Its crew prepared for combat. They were few. They were flying obsolete technology that the galaxy had thrown away. But they were human, and that made all the difference. The story was far from over. It was only beginning.